A massive passenger plane glided smoothly over Chicago O'Hare International Airport, preparing for landing. In the cockpit, Emily Carter remained focused as she communicated with air traffic control. With just 10 minutes until touchdown, she took a deep breath, glancing at the sky stretched out before her. Every time she saw the clouds rolling over the horizon, she felt grateful for the job she had always dreamed of. As she guided the plane through the descent, a memory from her childhood surfaced. When she was 7 years old, her father, James, took her to the annual Chicago Air Show. The roar of the fighter jets and the daring aerobatics against the vast blue sky had mesmerized her. "Daddy, how do I get to fly those planes?" she had asked, her small hand gripping his tightly. Her father had chuckled, ruffling her hair. "Not many women become pilots, sweetheart. It would be a tough road for you." Emily's determination had not wavered. "I don't care. I am going to be a pilot." Though caught off guard, her father had seen the unwavering determination in his daughter's eyes and nodded slowly. "Well then, do your best." From that day forward, Emily poured herself into her studies with relentless dedication. She excelled in science and mathematics, consistently ranking at the top of her class. After school, she spent hours in the library, reading everything she could find on aerodynamics and meteorology. Her parents were incredibly proud and supported her in every way possible. However, not everyone in the family was as thrilled about Emily's ambitions. Her younger sister, Melissa, 2 years her junior, resented the attention Emily received. While Melissa had always been admired for her looks and charm, it frustrated her that their parents' focus remained on Emily's academic achievements. Slowly, jealousy took root in her heart. "All you ever do is study," Melissa would say with a smirk. "You act like a nerdy little boy. No wonder you don't have a boyfriend." When Melissa reached middle school, she began spreading rumors about Emily among their classmates. "My sister is such a dork. She dresses like a guy and spends all her time in the library. She'll probably end up alone forever." Melissa always had a group of followers, and they happily played along, hiding Emily's books and whispering behind her back. Even at home, she never missed an opportunity to mock her sister. "Mom, can I get new clothes? I do not want to end up looking like Emily," she would say in front of their parents, shaking her head dramatically. Though the constant ridicule stung, Emily refused to let it shake her resolve. Instead, she became even more focused on her studies, spending less time at home and more time at the library. Her grades soared even higher. By the time high school came around, Emily made a bold choice. She enrolled in an aviation-focused academy in Arizona, far from their home in Illinois. Her parents were saddened to see her go, but they respected her decision. Melissa, on the other hand, was delighted. "Finally! Maybe now we can have a normal family." On the day Emily left, Melissa waved goodbye with a sweet smile that barely concealed her satisfaction. Emily saw right through it, but she no longer cared. Her heart was set on the future ahead. Life in Arizona was exactly what she had hoped for. Surrounded by others who shared her passion for aviation, she thrived. The rigorous coursework and intense training only fueled her determination. Though female students were few, it only made her more determined to succeed. With her impressive academic record, Emily was accepted into Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, one of the top aviation schools in the country. The next 4 years were the most challenging yet rewarding of her life. There were moments she thought about giving up, but every time, she reminded herself of that childhood day at the airshow, gazing up at the endless blue sky. Her dedication paid off. She earned her commercial pilot's license and secured a position at a major airline. In the 8 years since she had left home, she kept in touch with her parents, but remained distant from Melissa. Occasionally, she heard about her sister through them. Melissa had attended a local community college and now worked in ground operations for an airline. She still lived at home and spent most weekends shopping with friends. Emily's first flight as a commercial pilot happened to bring her back home to Chicago. Landing at an airport just 30 minutes from her parents' house, she reunited with them for the first time in years, this time in her crisp pilot's uniform. Her father's eyes welled up with tears. "You did it, Emily. You really did it." Her mother embraced her, pride shining in her eyes. Standing at a distance, Melissa watched the emotional reunion with a cold expression. The 8-year gap had done nothing to mend the divide between them. But Emily had no time to dwell on the past. Her life was about to take an unexpected turn. Meeting Michael Porter, a maintenance engineer for the same airline, would change everything. Working for a major airline in Chicago, Emily steadily built her career. Though female pilots were still a rarity and sometimes faced skepticism, her steady hands and sharp decision-making earned her deep respect. Her reputation as a skilled and reliable pilot grew quickly. Then, during a routine aircraft inspection, something happened that would alter the course of her life forever. I first met Michael Davis, an aircraft maintenance engineer, during a routine pre-flight check. He was around my age, known for his sharp attention to detail and strong work ethic. "I am scheduled for the 8 o'clock flight from Chicago to San Francisco. Any issues I should know about?" I asked, scanning over the maintenance report. "Everything looks good," Michael replied. Then, after a brief pause, he added, "But if you have time, we could go over the details over coffee." The invitation caught me off guard, but something about his steady and sincere demeanor made me agree. Over coffee, our conversation shifted from work to personal stories. Michael shared that he had once dreamed of becoming a pilot but had not been able to pass the necessary exams. Instead of giving up on aviation entirely, he chose a different path, keeping aircraft safe from the ground. "Seeing pilots like you makes me wonder if I should have tried harder," he admitted. "Pilots can only do their job because of skilled engineers like you," I told him. "Without you, we would never take off safely." Something in my words seemed to stick with him. Over the next 2 years, we naturally grew closer, our shared passion for aviation creating a deep bond. Eventually, we became a couple. I truly believed I had found the person I was meant to be with. One evening, while having dinner at a restaurant overlooking Lake Michigan, Michael pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "Emily, will you marry me? I cannot imagine my life without you." The engagement ring sparkled under the dim lights. I did not hesitate. "Yes," I said, without a second thought. When I shared the news with my parents, they were thrilled. Plans were quickly made for both families to meet, and I found myself preparing to return to my childhood home for the first time in 8 years. At the family dinner, my younger sister, Melissa, was quick to take center stage. Over the years, she had grown even more striking, dressed in expensive designer clothes that contrasted sharply with my simple blazer and slacks. "So, Michael, I hear you work in aviation," she said, her voice honeyed. "Yes, I am a maintenance engineer," he replied. "That is amazing," she said, leaning slightly closer. "Do you and Emily work together? There must be plenty of women in your department." Something about the way she spoke made me uneasy. I stayed quiet, not wanting to ruin the evening, especially since our parents were so pleased. But Melissa's behavior became more and more obvious. She laughed too much, leaned in too close, and spoke to Michael in a way that made it clear she was testing boundaries. "Melissa, that is enough," our mother finally scolded. "This is an engagement dinner, not a social event." Melissa just waved her off with a smirk. "We are going to be family soon, right? No harm in getting to know each other." After that night, Michael slowly started to change. He canceled plans more frequently, his calls became less frequent, and his presence on social media nearly vanished. I felt something was off. My gut told me to dig deeper. Then I found it. Melissa's social media posts, pictures of her and Michael at fancy restaurants, captioned with vague, flirtatious comments, "A lovely evening with a wonderful person." A sinking feeling took over my chest. I wanted to believe I was wrong, that this was some kind of misunderstanding. But the truth revealed itself faster than I expected. One day, out of nowhere, Melissa called me. "Emily, we need to talk. Meet me at the diner on the west side this Saturday." I agreed, unaware that the conversation I was about to have would change everything. That Saturday, I walked into the diner to find Melissa and Michael sitting together, side by side, like a couple. Melissa greeted me with a broad, almost triumphant smile. "I am sorry, Emily, but we cannot undo what has already happened." I stared at them, confused. "What are you talking about?" Melissa placed a hand on Michael's arm and dropped the bombshell. "We are having a baby." For a moment I thought I misheard her. The noise of the diner faded, my heartbeat pounded in my ears. Next to her, Michael looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to be anywhere but here. "You are joking," I finally managed to say. Melissa let out a small laugh. "Not at all. That is why we asked to meet you today. It is time for you to step aside." I turned to Michael, desperate for an explanation. "Michael, what is going on? What do you have to say about this?" He avoided my eyes, his voice low and strained. "She is pregnant, Emily. I have to take responsibility." "Responsibility?" My voice rose. "What about our engagement? What about everything we planned?" Michael exhaled heavily. "We were not married yet. We do not have kids. It is better to end things now." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. "I already spoke to your parents," he continued. "I canceled the wedding venue. I thought about using it for my wedding with Melissa, but that might be too soon." His words made me feel physically sick. Melissa, unfazed by my horror, smiled again. "We will pay for the cancellation fee, of course, but we thought you should contribute too. You and Michael made the reservation together, after all." My hands clenched the glass of iced tea in front of me, my fingers trembling. "Are you serious?" My voice shook. "You betray me, and then expect me to help cover the costs?" Other diners started to glance in our direction. Melissa rolled her eyes. "Emily, do not make a scene." "Michael." I turned to him, pleading for even a sliver of decency. "Tell me this is not happening." But instead of an apology, he muttered something that made my stomach turn. "I never liked you." Melissa grinned. "Yeah, when I heard Michael was a pilot, I was very interested." And just like that, everything made sense. Melissa did not care about Michael, she cared about the image. The title. The prestige of dating a pilot. And Michael? He was weak enough to go along with it. Melissa lifted her head, eyes wide in shock. "What do you mean?" "I'm the pilot." Her confident expression froze. Michael quickly pulled his arm away from her, instinctively putting some distance between them. "Wait, what?" Melissa stammered. "Michael is a pilot. That is what he told me. That he works in aviation." "You assumed that," I said flatly. "He never actually said he was a pilot." Melissa's face turned pale as realization set in. No, that cannot be right. I have been telling everyone that my boyfriend is a pilot." Michael, now visibly nervous, began fumbling for an excuse. "I never lied, Melissa. I never said I was a pilot. You just jumped to conclusions." Melissa's face twisted with rage. "Shut up!" she screamed, her voice ringing through the restaurant. "You deceived me." Michael ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "You assumed it." "I could not correct you because you could not?" I interrupted, my voice cold and controlled. "Or you just would not because it benefited you?" Either of them responded. I exhaled and looked Melissa in the eye. "One more thing. Are you actually pregnant?" For the first time, she hesitated. "Well, I prove it," I said, cutting her off. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I reached into my bag and placed an envelope on the table. It bore the logo of a well-known private investigation agency. Melissa snatched it up, ripping it open, but the moment she saw the contents, she froze. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice shaky. "Photographic evidence," I replied. "Every secret meeting. Every late-night hotel visit. Every fancy dinner that never made it onto your social media. All with dates and timestamps." Michael's face drained of color. You had me followed? Of course, I said. Did you think I would sit back and do nothing while my fiancé had an affair with my sister? Melissa slammed the envelope onto the table. It was not an affair, she hissed. You were only engaged. That does not count. Legally, an engagement is a contract. You broke it through deception and lies. And the pregnancy? That was fake, wasn't it? Melissa stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the floor. That does not matter, she shrieked. You always had everything. You were always praised. For once, I thought I had won. The restaurant fell silent. Michael buried his face in his hands, too ashamed to look up. I sighed, shaking my head. You were so focused on competing with me that you never saw your own worth. I envied you, Melissa. Your confidence, your social skills, your effortless charm. But you only saw what I had. Spare me the lecture, she snapped. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, leaving Michael sitting there stunned. After a long pause, he finally looked at me. Emily, will you ever forgive me? I met his gaze. Forgive you? I repeated. Michael, you are ashamed of being a maintenance engineer, but the only shameful thing here is your behavior. It is a respectable job, but you look down on it. You let my sister's flattery get to your head, and you threw everything away. He lowered his head. I stood up, pulled some cash from my wallet, and tossed it onto the table. Do not ever come near me again. Without looking back, I walked out into the cool Chicago air, letting out a slow breath. My phone was already in my hand, and on the screen was the number of a law firm. A few days later, I was sitting across from Jessica Monroe, an experienced attorney in a sleek high-rise office in downtown Chicago. While lawsuits over broken engagements are less common than divorce cases, she explained, flipping through my file, yours is a particularly strong case. I nodded, listening carefully. We have clear evidence of a formal engagement, she continued, including your family's involvement, the engagement ring purchase, and the reserved wedding venue. Additionally, we have substantial proof of infidelity, especially given that the other party is your own sister. I tightened my grip on my purse. Jessica studied me for a moment before adding, to be frank, this is an extreme case. Faking a pregnancy to force an engagement breakup is considered malicious deception. That strengthens your claim. She slid a document across the table. We will demand compensation from Michael for the emotional distress, the wedding cancellation fees, and the engagement ring. As for Melissa, she will be required to compensate for intentionally interfering in your engagement and causing you harm. She gave me a reassuring look. I would recommend attempting a settlement before filing in court. Once they see the figures, they will take this seriously. As I left the office, the city was painted in warm orange light. My phone buzzed, over 20 unread messages from Melissa. I did not open them. A few days later, a certified letter arrived at Melissa's apartment. Her reaction? A scream so loud that her neighbors reportedly stepped out of their apartments in concern. There is no way I can pay this, Melissa shrieked, clutching the letter in her trembling hands. Panicked, she ran straight to our parents' house, pleading for their help. But for the first time, she did not get the response she wanted. You made your choices, Melissa, our father said, his voice firm. Now you have to live with them. Do you even realize how much pain you caused Emily? Our mother asked, sighing deeply. A sister stealing her sister's fiancé. I cannot believe you would do something so heartless. Tears welled in Melissa's eyes. But I do not have any money. Our mother raised an eyebrow. Really? Weren't you buying designer clothes every week? If you had money for that, you should have been saving. Melissa collapsed onto the couch, sobbing, but this time, our parents did not console her. Meanwhile, Michael faced his own disaster. Word about his affair had spread through his workplace. Even worse, his own careless words about being ashamed of only being a maintenance engineer had reached the wrong people. And in aviation, trust is everything. Michael's behavior at work quickly caught up with him. His colleagues, especially the senior engineers, looked at him with open disdain. "We cannot trust a guy who is ashamed of his own profession to handle critical aircraft maintenance," one of them muttered. Even the pilots began avoiding him, out of both professional mistrust and sympathy for me. In the aviation industry, teamwork is essential, and Michael had effectively isolated himself. Then, the final blow came: Melissa. She stormed into the airport terminal, causing a full-blown scene. "Why did this happen? You ruined my life!" she shrieked at him, loud enough for the entire concourse to hear. Security had to step in and escort her out, but by then, the damage was irreversible. Michael's reputation was destroyed, and soon after, both he and Melissa agreed to a legal settlement regarding the damages they caused. Melissa had no choice but to quit her job. She started working multiple part-time positions just to slowly pay off her share of the settlement. Her once lavish lifestyle vanished overnight, and she ended up living alone in a cheap apartment on the outskirts of town. Michael's fate was no better. He tried to restart his career at a different airline, but in an industry as tight-knit as aviation, word had already spread. Every new employer knew about what he had done. As for me, I moved forward without hesitation. Flying always had a way of clearing my mind. The moment I was in the cockpit, soaring above the clouds, the past felt smaller, like something I had already left behind. One day, a fellow pilot approached me. "You have been through a lot, but you handled it with grace," she said. "We female pilots are still the minority. We cannot afford to show weakness." I smiled. "It is all life experience," I said simply. "But I am not looking back anymore. There are still so many skies I have yet to fly." A year passed. One evening, I was piloting a flight from Chicago to Los Angeles. As I looked out at the deep blue sky at 36,000 feet, I felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. The airline had offered me a promotion, a position as a senior pilot flying long-haul international routes. It would require me to relocate to San Francisco, leaving Chicago behind. I had already talked to my parents about it. "Go, Emily," my mother had said, her voice firm. "You were never meant to stay in one place. The world is waiting for you." My father, ever the quiet one, had simply nodded, his eyes filled with pride. Meanwhile, Melissa's life had changed beyond recognition. She had gone from shopping at luxury boutiques to juggling a supermarket cashier job during the day and an overnight fast food shift. She had not even paid off half of the settlement yet. "Melissa, late again?" her manager snapped at her. That is the third time this month. Being scolded at work had become routine for her. The glamorous life she once flaunted felt like a distant dream. Her social media? Deleted. Her so-called friends? Gone. She rarely heard from my parents. Even they refused to let her come back home. Actions have consequences. My mother had texted her once. "Keep working until you understand that." As for Michael, he also struggled to move on. He found another maintenance job, but his past followed him wherever he went. He started dating a young female engineer who admired his experience. "You are so knowledgeable," she had told him, starry-eyed. But it did not last long. One day, she came across his history on social media. "I cannot believe I ever respected you," she said coldly. "Do not ever talk to me again." That was the final blow. Michael left aviation altogether. Now, he works at a small-town auto repair shop, a far cry from the airline industry he once dreamed of. Every so often, people say he stands outside the garage, looking up at the sky as if searching for something. Maybe it is regret. Maybe he thinks of me whenever he sees contrails stretching across the sky. But that is not my concern. My new life in San Francisco began. My career was thriving, and I had met someone, David, a physician who specialized in aviation medicine. I have always respected pilots. He told me one evening, looking at me with admiration. Unlike Michael, his respect was real. One day, I received an unexpected email. From Melissa. Sis, I think I am changing little by little. I have not paid off the settlement yet, but I will. And I am sorry. I am truly, deeply sorry. I did not respond. But I quietly hoped it was true. As I soared above the Pacific Ocean, guiding my plane toward another destination, I made an announcement over the speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, we are expecting clear skies ahead. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of your flight. As I gripped the controls, I smiled. After every storm, there is always clear sky ahead. And I had never stopped flying toward it.